Welcome! This is my SQL video, and I'm very excited because ever since the course began in spring 2019, I've wanted an SQL optional module, and finally I get it because I was having trouble trying to figure out how I would get SQL to you guys, and then Google was just like, hey, we can do it for free on Google on the console, and that wasn't available to us in the past, at least not to my knowledge. So we're going to go ahead and log in. I'm going to log in under some random name. Okay, so I just logged in under one of my many accounts, and you will get potentially different things showing up when you log in for the first time. For example, if it's the first time you log in, you'll get this option, just dismiss it. And also later you'll get some kind of welcome to the cloud, whatever. If you get these things, great. If you don't, it's because you've probably been here before. Okay, so the purpose of this step that we're going through now is to make sure that you've visited this site and you've accepted the terms and everything, so that when we go to use it, it doesn't bother you with a whole bunch of setup. Okay, so we're going to go to a new project. I'm going to say I want a new project, and I'm just going to create it. If it's the first time coming here, you're going to have like a welcome to BigQuery or something, and just say done. Don't buy anything, don't give them your credit card number, don't do anything like that. Okay, so you can just click on select project, but if this box doesn't come up, then you can just pick it in the drop down menu, and whatever your new project is, that's going to be your project. You can name it like whatever you want, okay? Or you can just take the default name they give you. Now, in a new window, I want you to go to Cloud, Google.com, BigQuery public data. And then you're going to click on this Go to Datasets in Cloud Marketplace. Click on some datasets and explore this interface. I'm going to ask you to pause the video and actually explore this page. Okay, there are about 231 datasets or so with varying levels of documentation. I want you to follow the instructions in the write-up to poke around, and I'm going to skip ahead, so I'm going to let you go ahead and poke around and follow those instructions. Now, I'm going to the cloud to ground lightning strikes set, so I look for this logo, the NOAA logo, and I'm going to click on view data set, and it should jump me into my big cloud. And if this is the first time you've used this platform, it's going to give you more dialog boxes that you need to click away. Okay, now you should see in here this huge library. Now if you don't see it, don't worry, then just ask me, because as we go through these steps, it should magically appear. Your NOAA lightning set is buried in here, and that's why they brought this huge data set into play. So you can scroll until you find it. It's after the eyes. There we are, NOAA lightning, right here. And there's a whole bunch of data sets in there. So you can expand and contract all these different data sets, and I encourage you to, again, right now, pause the video and look through these data sets, and you'll see that they're the same as all the ones that were advertised on this interface over here. Okay, so let's go back to our Google Cloud Platform. I'm going to look at Lightning from 2019. And it turns out that this data set is incomplete. Now, I didn't pick 2020 because I think it's incomplete. I think that this symbol might mean it's incomplete, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to assume this is complete, and then I'm going to be disappointed. But if I just click on these kebab dots and then go to query, that will I do this because I don't want to have to type this whole thing out. That's a real nuisance to type that out, because if I just hit compose new query, I'm going to have to type that all out myself. So instead I say select star from. Now make sure you don't put spaces here. Make sure that every line you start doesn't have any leading spaces. Spaces later aren't going to be a problem, but don't start with spaces. Okay? And you want to do this query. So let's do select from here and say where. Now you can start putting things in here. So after the number where, I want to type num and see if there's any autofill, like number of strikes. What I'm trying to draw attention to is this symbol here that looks like a blue rectangular box. That means that that's a variable in my data set, but I actually want to use date. And so I did that on purpose so that you don't get confused with these other dates that are little purple boxes. Those dates are functions that are built in, and I don't want to use the built-in function, I want to use the variable. So that's why I wanted to show you. You can see number of strikes is a variable, and you can see date is also a variable. That's what I want. I want date equals, once I hit date equals, date turns red. And then I want to type this date. I happen to know that that date is actually in the data set. And now that should turn green. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do my search by hitting run. And it's going to return all these results. Now if I wanted to, I could save off the results using this button. I can either save it to my Google account or I can save it to my local computer as a CSV. But look what happens. It shows me that I have 1,000 results. That's kind of suspicious. That was exactly my limit. So why don't I make this 10,000 and try again? Now I'm more assured. I see I got 3,036 results. And so now I know how many of the lightning strikes occurred on that day. But it turns out that after I play with this data, I find out actually it only has December in it, and something else is weird. Number of strikes is listed as 1 at each one of these points. And that actually doesn't make sense because that point is not an actual point on the ground. It's actually a little rectangle on the ground, and I think that's the center of that geometric region. So I'm going to actually move over to this other data set. So I'm going to close this down. You can save your query if you want, but it's not necessary. I'm just playing around right now. I want you to do this in more detail as is given in the instructions, but I just want to highlight what's going on here so you can see some of these happening. Okay? All right, so we're going to do this again now, but we're going to do it for 2018. Select star. Star means everything. From everything from the data set. And I want to say where date equals. You can pick anything you want, but you have to understand what the format of the date is in this data set. And I'm just telling you, this is the way the date is written in this data set. And I'm going to go ahead and run that and find out that I way underestimated how many I was going to get back. I actually end up trying for a much bigger limit. You can get rid of the limit altogether, but I kind of like to leave the limit in there just for good measure. And I see 27,000 results, and I'm like, actually, let me see if I can make this query more interesting. I actually only want the places that got a lot of lightning, and I see there's an 85 here, so how about number of strikes is greater than 85, let's say. Then what do we get? We find out that it's much lower now. There's 518. Maybe I want to hike that up to 100, but I can do even better than that. I can actually do an order by and say I want to order by number of strikes, and I want it to be descending so that I want the big ones on top. So let's go ahead and do that again. And now I have something even more interesting. Now I can say on the 4th of July, there were a lot of lightning strikes in what little region of the country. And notice these are lat lons, and notice this geometric point appears to be very, very close to this geometric point. So it wasn't just that they got 453 strikes in this little block, but they got 335 in this block that was very nearby, and then they got in this one nearby, it's on the other side, just like 323. So there was a lot of lightning going on there that day. So let's figure out where that was. I'm just going to head over to Google Maps, and I'm going to find out where that is. So that's just 45.8. Google Maps lists the lat long in the opposite direction as this interface, minus 100.6. If you put it in backwards, Google Maps will not know what you're talking about. But you can see you're in South Dakota. Zoom out a little bit to see where that point is. And don't forget, there were, whatever this box is, there were a whole bunch of lightning strikes happening right here that day. Okay, so congratulations, you are now running SQL queries. Hope you're having fun. And then you can look at some other SQL. There's an SQL cheat sheet I want to show you. And that's pretty cool because it gives you an idea of what else you can do in SQL. And specifically, I want to focus on these aggregate functions and show you how to use those. Okay, all this stuff, if you want to be serious about SQL, you want to learn all the stuff on these pages. And I would recommend doing that after we've covered some R and some Python, because in R and Python we're going to talk about some concepts that overlap with the SQL concepts. So if you wait till the end of the semester to go back and try to learn these concepts, they'll come much more easily. Okay, so for now, let's just see what happens if we want to do like some kind of average or count. I'm going to go to a different data set. I'm going to go back here again, and I'm going to look at the American Community Survey, which is over here. And I'm going to use this mechanism to open the data set, but it doesn't take me to exactly the right place, but it's very close to where I want to be. So I'm going to use the fact that I now have an idea of what the name of the data is. I'm going to say, aha, it's under Census Bureau ACS. That's how I'm going to find it. It's in my BigQuery, and it's under Census Bureau ACS. And then once I get down there, I find out, wait a second, block group 2010, why don't I go ahead and use a little more recent data? So I'm actually going to query a different data set that's like a neighboring data set. So that's just something, and I will let you go ahead and do this on your own and play with that. I think you can follow along with that. The other little thing I wanted to show you in the video is I wanted to show you how you can upload data to create your own project from if you had your own data set that you wanted to play with. Okay, so I'm going to go to USA Facts and look at the COVID data, and I give you this, pretty sure I give you this URL in the lab, and I'm going to download the deaths cases. Okay, so that's going to end up on my desktop. That's a CSV file. It's fairly big, but it's not too big to fit on my computer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project. You can see I've done this kind of thing many, many times before. I need to create a new one though. I don't really like this name that they give it. I have a whole bunch of project called COVID. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the, oh, I don't want that project. I want to go to actually this project. All right. Now I'm in my new thing that I just created. See, there's nothing in here. So I guess I'm going to have to create a data set and go ahead and create the data set, and there's nothing in it. That just gives us a place to put the data. Now we want to create a table. That's when we can actually create a table. Do not name your table table. You can put the word table in the name of the table, but that's okay. All right, so what else do we need to do? You want to upload it. Select your file, and I want to select the thing I just downloaded, and I have to click this button that says auto detect schema, and that's it. Just make sure you named everything. If you leave anything blank, or if you name your table table, which is illegal, or if you don't auto detect schema, something will go wrong, but then you don't have to deal with, I think, any of the other options. Most of the options are just correct, and it keeps telling me I failed to create a table, but what is actually happening is it's just a large data set, and the system is a little bit backlogged, so it's just taking a little while for it to create. So in the past it didn't do that, but in the past the COVID data set was much smaller, and so that's what was going on there. Okay, so I think I already have my COVID data. I'm just going to come over here and see if it's been created. It hasn't been created yet, so I'm just going to wait a little bit. Aha, it's created. See, it took a while. Now I can query it. And we're going to adjust it to make a query that's meaningful to us. So we're going to say, and this is, you're just going to copy almost exactly what I have with slight changes. So I'm going to select everything from that table. My limit is going to be 6 instead of 1,000. I'm going to say where state is, and you're not allowed to use Maryland or Texas, but you can use anything else, because I'm going to use Texas and Maryland in my examples. Okay, and I want county FIPS, that's the ID, to be greater than 0. The reason is if I allow county FIPS to be 0, those are all the state unallocated data. So for example, the ship comes into California, has COVID people on it, then those COVID numbers count towards California, but those COVID cases do not count towards any specific county. So that's why that's in there. It may or may not matter, but it's just a precaution. So for some states it doesn't matter. Now I want to order by the most recent date in the data file, and it takes a while to figure it out, but for example, today is the 13th of January, so I'm going to guess it's January 10th, 11th, or 12th. It's going to be a fairly recent date, and it looks like there's only one date in that range. I only have January 10th data here. Don't forget descending, otherwise you'll end up with an issue that I just, if you notice, I had to take a break and record this again. If you notice, the little clock changed because I accidentally forgot descending, and I ended up with ridiculous results. So I have to do it over again. Luckily, it's not that hard. Okay, so now I'm going to create this. This looks much more reasonable. I happen to know those are the right counties. And I'm going to save the results. I can save it on Google Drive if I want. This is not a very big file. This is why we're doing this. The very big file is right here. And this whole project is going to expire in about 90 days. This is something like that. So then we don't have to worry about taking up all this space. You can manually delete your project if you want, and then it will still be active for another month. Okay, but if you just don't do anything and come back in 4 months, this will be gone. Okay, So now we want to head over to Google Sheets and load that in. We're going to go import this data, and it's this gobbledygook. So it's got this weird name. It's got garbage underscore garbage underscore garbage.csv. By the way, that's the wrong one for me. That's the one where I forgot to put descending. And I'm just going to import this. All right, and then I'm going to delete the following columns. I'm going to delete county FIPS. I'm going to delete the state, and you'll see why in a second, and the state FIPS. None of this is useful for the next step I want to accomplish. I'm going to highlight everything. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to open a new sheet. I'm going to sit right here. Now I'm going to right click and say paste special. Where's the paste special? Here it is. And transposed. And by doing that, I'm going to automatically be telling the computer that, well, you'll see. It will automatically suggest that maybe what I'm interested in is a graph that looks something like this, which in fact I am interested in. This is a beautiful graph, and this is exactly what I want. And so I want to copy this directly in, but hey, you know, I would rather move this to its own sheet. That would be really great. I'm going to change this so it says COVID deaths for select counties in Texas. Okay, and maybe I don't like the colors. In fact, I ask you to change some of this stuff around. So let's figure this out here. I'm going to customize this color. What do I want? I want to adjust the color for this guy. So I want to make it rainbow color, for example. You can change it to whatever you want, or don't make it rainbow. I don't care. But now Dallas and Harris are the same color, and I don't like that. So maybe I want to make Dallas the orange one, but maybe I want to make it dashed. Okay, and then I like Bexar and Tarrant. Maybe I like blue for El Paso. So I'm going to make El Paso blue, but then I have two blue ones, and maybe I don't want them to both be so close together. And I'm going to make this one purple and dashed. So just to have fun with that, okay? As much as COVID data can be fun, it's not fun, but at least you can make it colorful and pretty and easy to read. And then you're going to save that and put that in a write-up. Okay, so that's what we're doing for SQL and Google Sheets, and I hope you have fun with that.